What are triggers and how do we deal with triggers?
Welcome to Unwind and Wonder podcast. I'm Liza.
I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Felicity. Maybe we should talk about like what triggers are too and kind of set the stage for everybody. So I Googled triggers and I'm on helpline.com and it says what it really means to be triggered. Common triggers may include reading or watching something that reminds you of a traumatic event and causes emotional distress. Phrases, odors, or sounds can also be triggers.
It's based on how you grew up, right? Like my mom doesn't really speak very much. My mom is very quiet nature, doesn't really yell. I mean, so a lot of times, I don't, whenever anything that like triggers me, it's mostly based on what I've seen what my mom has gone through and how we've had that relationship. Because I grew up with a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also how you respond. My mom is very quiet. It's like I just sit there and quiet like the kid in the back of the class.
No.
Like I just sit and just look like, okay, all right, this is it. So it also, like I said, it depends on how you grow up too. I think, how your parents treated you, how they helped you deal with emotional problems, just your relationship with them kind of helps you understand your triggers alone.
So the weird part about triggers is sometimes I wonder how, like, to the point, like how many of us even know what a trigger is, because I don't know I'm triggered until I come back from my trigger.
Oh,
So
yeah.
do you know what? Right. I'm glad I'm not alone because I'm like, I won't even know I'm triggered until I sit there and I'm like, wait a minute, like, why did I just react like that? Why did I just kick this person out of the chat room? Why did I do that? Like, what is that? Why do I feel out of control? Because if you think about triggers, it's like it's something where we feel out of control. It's something that's happening around us that's making us lose sense of the moment, like of the present. And then it's just something that kind of snaps you into like before you know it, you're yelling at someone, you're lashing out at someone. It could be a parent, a family member, a loved one. It can be so many people around us, people that we love, people that we don't even know.
But that's why I think it's how you grew up because that's how you, like I said, everyone's upbringing will shape how you respond and what triggers you.
Mm-hmm. Your upbringing and your life experiences also too, I would say. And it says triggers vary widely and could be internal or external. Specific phrases or odors or sounds can also be triggers for people who have experienced traumatic events, et cetera, et cetera. Substance use disorder also involves triggers too. It has nothing to do with being too sensitive. Yeah, so I think it's just saying like those things that may have happened, they could have been traumatic events or just bad experiences that happen to people. And then now when those areas are like kind of tapped or touched, then you could respond in a way that you're not used to responding.
I also think you need to define traumatic because I think a lot of people now will say this is just trauma. And even though a lot of times things aren't trauma, it's just you can have a bad experience with something, but doesn't mean it was traumatic. So I think we also need to break down what traumatic is. Because I feel like a lot of people would say you're trauma responding. It's like, no, I just had a bad experience. It doesn't mean I'm talking from trauma. It could be I just had a bad experience before.
Yeah, trauma is different for everyone. And I heard a definition that trauma is in the nervous system. So it's in how your body reacts to that situation. So it could be something that's light to one person, but then to another person, it'll be really impactful to their nervous system. So now every time they think about this thing again or something similar, like it happens, like they start to like sweat and kind of panic and their heart starts racing. And it's just their body is triggered by that thing. So it's like that's what they call sometimes a trauma response. I'm just learning about it now in school. So it's different for everybody. Yeah.
Trauma also like brings us back to a place of something that happened, and it's almost like it takes you back to a place of an unpleasant situation, and it's difficult for you to come out of that situation, right? Like it traps you in that moment that you don't know how to regulate your nervous system. At that time, I'm just reacting to that emotion. You don't have no time to really process what you're going through at that time. right? So
Oh,
he's reacting on that moment. Someone spilled a bottle of water on my table. For some people, like, well, just pick it up, just.
mm,
But for someone who possibly, going back to what Ryan said, like had a childhood that when someone spilled water on that
mm,
table, someone came in and just knocked them over on the table, like, how are you, and get on their face.
Yeah.
That reaction is going to be very different to that water being spilled
mm.
on a table. Um, so if you don't deal, if you're not aware of those triggers, you're going to continue reliving that scenario where you're going to have those traumatic experiences and possibly even pass it on to someone else, which I
Mm.
think is like the impact that we have is that if we know what our triggers are, how to not continue to move, like pass those around. I think
Here, how do
everything
you
that,
even find
yeah.
out? That's how do you even find that out? Because sometimes you find out the hard way. How
Mhm.
I wonder how you could look for it otherwise.
I think definitely I think that we find the hard way when we go through experience, but it also some people do not take the time to actually know, like understand where the triggers are coming from. I think sometimes some people, not everyone, but they go throughout life. Well, someone did that, I get upset, and they don't take the time to really understand, was that really valid for something to be upset over? Could I have reacted in a in a different way. Right? Um, the only way to find out is that is like really sitting down or maybe being open to someone when they're talking to you. But I don't know
Oh
how will
yeah.
someone get
Mhm.
there to listen to someone say like, listen, that was not the right way for you to react over spilled water. And I think that you just have to be open to it
You're touching
whenever
on
you're
like
ready.
I feel like you're touching on reflecting, like reflecting back, right? Because after something triggers us, then it's that moment. Well, most people will have that moment of clarity where we can just reflect back on how did I feel after this trigger and how did the people around me feel after that trigger. And then it's kind of like you just said, like the kind of having that conversation and just sharing, like, all right, this is how I felt. Could I have done this differently? Could I have reacted differently to the spilled water or to the scenario? Was there a better way I could have handled this?
Well, I think it's also like the way you guys literally just defined is exactly what I was talking about. Because I think people understand if
Mm.
you understand the definition of it, because a lot of times, as humans, we'll think that all right, this is automatically a trigger when it may not be. But understanding what trauma is the first step. Because if you don't understand
Hmm.
what it is, you're just
Yeah.
you lash out. But if you understand what it is, then you have better self awareness.
Mhm.
That is a very, very good question and a very good point because I'm also reflecting to using Kim's word, like reflecting back to those scenarios where how do you find out if you already grow up in that environment and that is everybody's reaction? How would
Mm.
you know that that's actually not the
Mm.
way to react?
Because that's the
Like
norm. Oh,
the
that's
own
beautiful. It's the
that is the
norm.
norm.
You're
Yeah,
right. It becomes the norm of your
you
family.
don't do better if you don't know better.
But you don't even know
Yeah.
you want to do
Exactly.
better. How do you know you want to
No,
do
that's what I'm
better?
saying. You don't do better unless because you don't know
This is
better.
the most that I know. I'm going to do what I know.
This is the most that I know.
So, question for each one of you: when was the first time you felt like? Do you have a moment where first time you felt like when you were triggered and you caught yourself? Like, what's one moment you realized like
All right,
you were
spot.
triggered literally inside and you thought like, whoa, this is something
Whoa.
that's
Mm.
I love this question. Thank you. I have a good one. So, and it's a strange one because and maybe it was like 6 years or so. I come from a family of 3 children. I'm the middle child. I have an older brother, younger sister, and my younger sister is 6 years younger than me. And so just imagine I was born and then this other person came. I was like the best thing on the earth for six
Oh,
years. And then now all of a sudden things have changed. Okay. So I thought I was over it. But about 6 years ago, no lie, I was at my mother's house with my sister, and we had just got there. And my mom went to hug my sister first before she hugged
mm.
me. And the fire that rose up in my chest, I was like, oh my, I was in shock. I just stood there like, what just happened? Yeah, yeah.
I feel that. I can feel that,
Mhm.
So what
Felicity.
did
Like,
you do?
No, I just started just deep breathing because I couldn't tell them. I was just like, this is crazy. Like, why am I like, what is happening? This lady just hugging her children. Like, just calm down. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but
So,
there you
Sorry,
go.
you were gonna.
That's self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like when you catch
yeah.
yourself, you're like, wow, this is
And is it true?
Yes.
I feel like just to dig a little deeper, it's like, are those feelings and those thoughts, are they even true? You know, like, does it, because then I start thinking, like, are these feelings valid? And you never want to devalidate someone's feelings, but is it logical to feel this way? Because like you just said, she's just a woman hugging her child and you're
Yes.
also her child. But the fact that she did it first, like I feel that because I have a sister, so I feel that 1,000%.
Right, but it's not like it's real because you feel it. Like I literally felt that. I felt that. There's no way. And I know that's a trigger. I know that's a trigger. And I know that was traumatic for me because I was the baby and then I wasn't anymore. But they didn't intend to harm me at all and they always treated me well. So it's like, but I still live with that. Like that, was literally a fire in my chest.
how about you, Liza? What's a moment that you feel like you were triggered and you caught yourself?
How different sounds are triggers to me. I cannot even tell you what they trigger me, but they do. I'm very perceptive to sounds, and I could have someone just sitting right next to me, and if I hear them chewing with their mouth open, I already know that I'm going to be. My older self will just stare at that person. I'm like, "What are you doing? Just close your mouth." And it's not even like they have their mouth open. It's just the sound of it that is just. I kept seeing in my head like just the food happening. So what do I do? I'm like, this person is just enjoying their food. Just let them enjoy their food. So I just either put something to distract myself. I will be like loud music, or I will put my headphones. So I just like let the person enjoy their life because if something has to do something just with me, it's not affecting the other person at all, and they don't even know I'm being affected by it. So Cam and Ryan's turn.
Uh, I feel like I'm always triggered. Everything triggers me. But to the answer, the second part of that, like, how do I, you know,
Was it a moment that caught yourself?
where I don't. I feel like I always catch myself afterwards. I'm going to use an example from yesterday. Yesterday, we had plans to be somewhere at a specific time, and we can all see. Let's just look at Liza's face for a second. So we all had to be there at a certain time. Reservations got pushed back a few times. And I'm over here planning the whole day from the beginning of the day to the time we have to meet up, to the time we have to be somewhere. And I'm like, all right, Kim, let's try to organize, plan these things out. And I'm getting ready like 2 hours early just to be safe. And then I'm like, all right, Brian, let's start getting ready. He's like, it's gonna take me 15 minutes. Like, I'll just get ready 15 minutes before we leave. And I'm like, I don't know. I think we should start now. He's like, no. I'm like, no, I think we should start. I was like, just do it now. Just do it now. And it became like a trigger because I'm like, we're gonna get there late. We're gonna get there. We're not gonna get there. We're gonna be late. I'm driving. The weather's crazy. Like all of these things are just overwhelming in my head. So what do? I just keep festering Ryan. Ryan, go get ready. You gotta go get ready. You gotta get ready. He's like, when am I ever late? He's like, when am I ever not ready? And I'm like, no, you gotta just do it right now. So it's just more like it was a trigger where he just kept saying, no, I'll do it later. So I don't feel like I did the best job at handling that trigger, but I did apologize afterwards when I come back to like reality. I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry because you're right. He's always dressed fast. He's always ready. And I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry. I was very nervous. I'm like, I have to drive. I got to keep 4 people alive in this car. Like, I'm trying to help people understand why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling because now it's the moment's over. So now I just need to explain why I was so nervous prior.
If you know that was already a trigger, that's already established as a trigger. Someone not getting ready, you told them to get ready in 50 minutes. I have to plan. Let's go. This is the time. If it happens again, where you're in another situation where you have to plan an event and someone is saying like, I'll get ready in 50 minutes, would you handle it differently because you already had that experience and you know that it worked out okay? Or will you go through the same emotions, the same cycle?
I feel like I'll be in that same cycle. Because I don't believe in just because you did it once or twice, you're gonna continue the pattern. I feel that even though you were able to get ready in 15 minutes, what if this day your sneaker breaks, your shoe, your shirt doesn't fit right, you want to switch your outfit a few times? So I just kind of don't even want to leave it up to chance. I'm just more like, listen, we have the time, just start now. So I just think that there's other things that could happen. So in my brain, to avoid that, I'm just more like, listen, let's just be ready. We could sit on the couch with our coats on. All right, so tell us about a trigger and how you addressed it.
Um, I remember one that stood out. It was actually my junior year of college. I had just turned 21 not too long ago. I was dating this girl. I was losing weight. I was running on the track. I was doing like 10 miles a day of running and basketball. So that was technically my therapy because I was an RA, I had all these jobs and everything. So it was just a stress-free environment. So she calls me one day and it's like 8 o'clock at night and I'm on the track running and she's like, I need to talk to you. And I said, are you sure? Because if I get off this track, it better be a serious conversation because you know how this is like my therapy. She goes, no, it's serious. So I said, okay. So I get off the track, I go and meet her, and I knock on her door. She opens the door, she comes out, and she starts yelling at me, like just yelling. I can't believe this, Ryan. You're talking to this other girl, blah, blah, blah. And I just stared. Like my mind just wanted to go, yo, shut up, like the loudest I could be at any point. And I was just like, I just shut off. Like I just mentally shut off. The way I wanted to respond, I just kept yelling, you talking to this girl, I can't believe it, blah, blah. And I literally just stopped. Like I just like she stood at me and then when she stopped talking, like a minute went by, I just looked at her. Like I could not fathom the words to be like, all right. And then literally what came in my mouth was, yo, when you're done yelling at me, I'll come back. So I just walked away and screamed even louder as I was walking away. And my mind was thinking like, yo, just respond. Because I can be a very defensive person a lot of times. So that was the first time I caught myself instead of being defensive. I was like, you know what? I'm tired. I can't do this.
Is that still a trigger now?
When people yell, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, but I catch myself like when I'm like, I just stare. Like I just look, it's like a blank stare, and I'm like, all right, Ryan, do not respond the way you think you should respond. Because I get to the point where I just never want to say anything to somebody that I will always regret because the intensity of any emotion can be ridiculous. You can literally be infatuated with someone and feel like it's love. You can be so angry at someone that you think you feel like you want to kill them, you hate them. Literally, when that emotion subsides, then it's clarity. So I always try to find a way to be like, all right, just don't respond because what you're feeling right now is probably not what you're gonna feel in the next like couple of hours. So I just stare and then I just wait and I'm like, all right, cool. I'll tell like, yo, can you come back to this? If you can't, I'll just leave the space and try to come back later.
I want to add that I think something that Ryan shared is like self control. Because when we think about triggers and we try to think about how often in a trigger we're in control, in my opinion, it's like slim to none. It's like an outer body experience in a way because unless you really have digged and know where this trigger is coming from, it can be anybody, like doors closed. Like even like there's so many things that you don't really realize affect you until you really sit and you just really think with yourself like, yo, why does this bother me? Why is this even a thing? Why is this something that I even think about?
I'm wondering now, are we supposed to just acknowledge these triggers and what are we supposed to do with them, right? Are we supposed to do
Mhm.
like control them because we already know they're a trigger? Are we supposed to, or is it a way of how to not have the triggers so it doesn't continue to like affect our daily living?
Mm.
Can we get rid of triggers? Is that possible? Just like you manage trauma. If it's something, a traumatic event, can I deal with this trauma that it doesn't impact me in the same way every time I see this happening, this behavior happening? Because that's still very stressful to know that you have triggers all around you and you just like don't know where I'm going to step in, that something's
Mhm.
going to be triggered. That's a lot to handle.
I think you answered the question even in what you were saying, that you have to handle the trauma itself. If you can get to exactly what the trauma was and solve that and heal that, then the triggers probably are going to go away. And they have things. I heard of this thing called EMDR.
Mm.
Um, yes, that can
Mhm,
help you get over your trauma.
mhm.
And so it's really cool. So things like that, you could do things like that. And I think that'll help you get away, get, not have the triggers anymore. For just because I said it, EMDR is called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a form of psychotherapy that is controversial within the psychological community. I'm reading about it online.
But it's really out there. There's a lot of training about it
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yes, it's designed to alleviate distress associated with traumatic memories, such as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So I want to know more about it because I think that's like one good way. And then also like there's other ways to get rid of trauma. Like there's so many different things. So I think getting rid of it would be the way.
If we have like a more balanced emotion, like our emotions are a little bit more regulated, some of these things will they impact us the same. Because sometimes when we like our system is very hyped up, we are more easily triggered than other times.
Yeah, probably when you're really stressed, it's your triggers. You have less awareness and less ability to focus on like regular life. So you probably have you're probably more easily triggered, just like you're saying.
But I also wonder if triggers come more so if we're not clear-minded, right? Like if you're working a lot, you eat terrible, your mind is foggy, the triggers kicking even more, where there's like no self-awareness, or if you do take care of yourself in a much healthier lifestyle where you're breathing better, you're eating healthier, you're walking more. Like, do you have those same triggers? Because I know when I used to go for walks a lot, that helped me just not respond the same way I responded when I was stressed out.
Mm. I think the way you view yourself is the way you take care of yourself. So if you don't view yourself as someone that's deserving of all those other things, then you're not going to put in the work. I think for me, what really helps, just talking about like the mental clarity piece, it's just like exercise. Like, believe it or not, like 30 minutes on a stationary bike, like it gives me such a rush. Like when I tell you, like just seeing the sweat drip off, just seeing like your face all flustered and red, you see that you can't even catch your breath. I'm like, who can I be angry at? Look at all that hard work you just put in. Like, I feel like that jump starts that morning. I think I just want to take a moment and say this. When
Mm-hmm.
when I have these conversations about trigger, it reminds me of the importance of just stopping.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be so simple, but it's actually harder than we think. Like if in that moment, if we just stop and we think and we give ourselves that moment just to clear our brains and our feelings, I feel like that would be it can take us a long way. And I feel like that helps me. Like when I'm, able to stop and think, I feel like that's what I want to start or continue doing moving forward, just stopping and thinking. Why am I triggered? What can I do differently? How can I handle this situation better? What can I do? The present is what we have right now. What can my next choice be? What can my next thought be? What can my next words be? And then it can just become a domino effect of change.
I wonder if everybody has a capacity of actually stopping and thinking.
I barely have it.
You develop it. You have to
Yeah.
work on it. Yeah,
Mm.
just like Ryan was saying, he was been working on his since college, right? That was
Yeah, that one moment I was like, you know what? This is all I need. It's gonna ride us out a different way.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that alone, Ryan, like her yelling at you, if that itself was traumatic. Like having that
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, in the sense of yeah, because like the only person I was really used to yelling at me was my mom and my aunts, right? Like because they're West Indian women, they're gonna yell at you and whatever, and you're the child, and you're always a child no matter what. So I was used to that. So that to have someone else yell at me that wasn't any like adult in my family, like like it just like threw me off. Like yo, you're not you don't take care of me like that. Like there's no it just it wasn't a conscious. It just didn't make any sense to me. But then I realized, like, yo, literally when it was, because literally I had just finished doing my run and walk, I felt great. I was like, all right.
Mm.
And just being in that mindset, I was like, okay. And then I just started realizing whenever I would get upset, like I would just walk, like just walk, because I feel like walking helps me breathe better. It just helps me, like, I'll talk to myself. Like, it gives me better perspective.
Mhm.
So I'm able to like just breathe. I think breathing is one of the most important things to do
Mm.
just through any situation,
Mhm.
whether you're stressed, you're angry, you're happy, just breathing and walking just helps me. So ever since I started walking, and whenever someone like yelled at me, I just walk away, breathe, and come back.
Breathing is everything. I love it so much. It's so good for you. And being able to regulate your breathing, it does like wonders to your nervous system, just calming everything down and getting all those, like all that adrenaline and everything to stop being released because it's so bad for you. Even like learning different breathing techniques, because there's different, just breathing alone without a quote unquote technique can be helpful in those moments. But even learning, sometimes I've been to like yoga classes and things like that where they teach you different techniques that I never memorized after that, but like different ways, like breathe in 3 times and then exhale 1 long time, like things like that. Those would be fun too for people who want to learn them. And you feel differently after you do those too, in my experience.
I think you're right, especially with the adrenaline part. Like I think just breathe in, bring that adrenaline down. If you're angry, whatever, that bring the adrenaline down. That breathing definitely helps out.